This is a podcast about our lived experience, which unfortunately includes infant death and subsequent mental health struggles. Please take good care of yourself and only listen if this content feels safe for you right now. We'll still be here when you're ready.
Hi, I'm Judith.
And I'm Alina. We both lost babies to SIDS in winter 2021.
In the throes of grief, I reached out to a stranger on the internet and our friendship was born.
In the years since, we've been working hard to survive, rebuild, and navigate the continual challenges that have come our way, including divorce,
Job loss,
dating while bereaved,
moving multiple times,
health scares,
pregnancy and parenting a living child,
starting new jobs, and so much more.
We are tired.
Happily ever after is out of the question for us, but this podcast documents our journeys to happier ever after because we believe life after loss is worth living.
So join us as we laugh, cry until we laugh.
Welcome to As Long as I'm Living podcast.
We're so glad you're here.
Hi, everyone. This is Judith, Aiden's mom.
And Alina, Quinn's mom.
And this is the third part in a
Third and
three-part
final.
series. Third and final part in a three-part series where we interview my sister, Ilana. For those of you who've been with us on the first two parts, you know that this is an emotionally intense and beautiful series, and you'll find that this episode is the same. If you haven't had a chance to listen to part one and part two, go back a couple episodes, get caught up, and then we'll visit you again in a couple hours.
Yeah, this is a long series.
But enjoys today. Enjoy quotes. Enjoy as much as you can. Today's episode.
Part 3 is very hopeful. We talk about like how your relationship has gotten better and the tips she has for other sibling, bereaved aunts and whatever.
Get through
this
today's
one's a
episode.
little bit less tear jerky, I will say.
And we will see you guys next week with a brand new episode talking about something totally different. I hope that you enjoyed getting to know my sister as much as I love her. I hope you guys love her too.
There are two things that I want to make sure we talk about. So one is, do you feel like having mommy was there was helpful for you because you guys kind of were in it together, as in you were both
Floundering
together?
Yes.
Because I know she
think.
also felt like that. She
No,
was like,
we supported each other. We supported each other in floundering. At least if we're gonna, and we did, and we would. After I would speak to you, sometimes I'd have to speak to her just to unwrap what just happened.
I was not my kindest self. I was very frustrated, and I'm sorry because I'm sure it really hurt to have someone say you're doing a horrible job.
Well, it's as we say, hurt people, right?
Hurt people,
and sometimes I felt like, look, you couldn't be mean to mommy because she was literally feeding you food and cleaning your bathroom. You couldn't get out your feelings with your husband because he was floundering himself in a different ocean. And, I was your close person. And so when you had those feelings inside, it was me that they were going to come to. You weren't going to hurt your friends because you knew that they friends can take pauses, but your family can't. And so you can say hurtful things sometimes to your family because they'll come back anyways.
I kind of am picturing, when a kid is, really well-behaved at school and then they come home and they're, a terror because they feel safe and they had too much energy and they were overstimulated at school and they come home and they're, making a mess when they get home and they're, a mess. I feel like it's like that. Judith, this was such a safe person for you, right? That maybe it felt, okay for you to feel so much anger toward Ilana.
It wasn't towards me. It was angry at the world. I was just the one who was witnessing it.
I think that's
and angry
true.
at the unfairness.
Yes. I think that's true. I think that I was in general, I was not angry, but with Ilana, I was very angry. And things just started to get worse and worse because when my husband lost his job, I was even more angry than Ilana. It just...
Yeah.
So how did it get better? When did it get better?
Well, I think the podcast was one thing that was better, but another thing that I was going to say is that I started to see that Ilana was developing her own relationship with Aiden, and that she was speaking about him in her house, and it felt like she was making a really big effort to do things, and they weren't always 100% right. Like, they didn't always necessarily make me feel whatever it is, but it was clear to me that she was making an effort to remember him and help me carry the burden of the loss in her own right. You know, like, she has pictures of him in her house, and she talks about him with her kids, and her kids talk about him. And she sent me for Mother's Day like a magnet that, you know, had said like whatever, Aiden's mommy or whatever it was, like, and she got me this keychain when I was pregnant with my daughter that had his name on it. And she lights a candle for him every week. Like, it made me feel less alone, because my other family members weren't doing that. They were overwhelmed. Granted, they were getting divorced. My brother was just getting married. There was a lot going on. Like, everyone was so in their own self-absorbed planet. But even now, Ilana by far is the only one that remembers in a very tangible way and talks about Aiden and includes him in her family continuously. Not only that, but I see someone in her community lost a child. A few people in her community lost children in different ways, and like, I see how she talks to them and understands them and cares and listens, and it's just very clear to me that she was really affected by the loss, and that and Aiden takes up space in her life. And I think for me that was really comforting, and it made me feel less alone. And so it was easier to be forgiving, and it was easier to want to spend time with her when I felt like it was a safe space to talk about Aiden, to remember Aiden, to love Aiden, because she was doing the same.
Mm-hmm.
You think that's true, Ilana?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also what changed for me was, one, after you started EMDR therapy, when was that? Last summer?
Yeah, last May, like a year ago.
Last May. You had that session where you, I guess, worked with your therapist, and then you called me afterwards and you said something like, you know, my therapist explained to me that we had always gone through trauma together, our parents' trauma, like, you know, 20, 30 years of protecting each other from the world. And this was one instance where I couldn't protect you. And
I think that's true. I kept looking for you to make it better.
Yeah.
And you couldn't.
Yeah, but I think just that acknowledgement of like the contrast, right?
Yeah.
That like for so long we relied on each other. And that's why this also hurt so much. Was that, and I think I have come to terms with the fact that I did the best I possibly could. And I couldn't take this away.
Yeah. It's a hard pill to swallow, because you clearly love her so much.
But I think what shifted is that you couldn't take it away, but you could find a way to join me in it. To sit with me in it. When you came for his yard site.
Yeah, that was good. That was good. It was good. When I came for his yard site, it was good. And I mean, like, for myself, I found places for him in my life. Also for my children, but also for me. Like, we have a garden that I planted that spring. And we have a sign that says Aiden's Garden that looks a little weathered. But, you know, those flowers, they're all perennials because I wanted them to, you know, the winter we talk about is Aiden's season, December to March. The winter is Aiden's season. That's when he smiled at us, and that's when he, grew, and that's when we fought, kept him alive, and then he passed away, and then that spring I planted this garden so that every spring we'd have flowers, like a little bit of reminder about life. And
you sponsor things for his birthday.
Yeah.
And you talk about him with your children. And I actually want to ask you about that because I think it was definitely like a new topic in your home.
Hadn't come up before.
you know, like you had young kids who were like
Yeah.
8 and 5 or 8 and 6 or whatever they
Yeah.
were. And you one time said to me, like, oh, they know about depression because we spoke about it when Aiden died and they saw you. Like they have vocabulary around death. They have vocabulary around mental health issues. So, like, can you talk a little
bit?
bit?
They also have vocabulary around, like, spirits and Aiden being with us. Like, I'll never forget, Judith, you tell that story of when you were looking for, you wanted to ride scooters on that vacation, and you were with your nephew, and, like, there were just these scooters, and he was like, oh, Aiden sent us a scooter. And, like, he was so endeared by the concept that Aiden would send a scooter. Like, he was like, what? Juju, Aiden sent us a scooter? And like he was like, what else can Aiden send?
Yeah. I mean, I think for our family, like we connect with Aiden at the beach. I don't know what it is about the beach, or you call him dolphin sounds, or like I went to the beach after he passed away, or you had taken him to the beach so many times. I mean, this kid was 3 months old. He had already been to Santa Monica, San Diego, like Malibu.
California baby.
Yeah, but you know what? And I think about that also. He's a California baby. Out of all of the kids, he's the California baby. And so whenever we go on vacation, we bring shells home from our vacation, our beach vacation, to his garden. And so we have this pile. I mean, we have shells from Costa Rica, Tel Aviv, Panama, Miami, Outer Banks, West Hampton Beach. I mean, we have shells because we collect shells for Aiden's garden, and we always talk about it when we're on vacation. And it's but I think like Aiden comes with us to the beach. And whenever,
how do you find like talking about it with young kids? Like, how do they react to it? First of all, when you told them, I don't even know how they reacted.
Well, you told them. Do you remember?
You know what? I remember wanting to tell them. Yeah. Because I remember wanting them to see that I was okay.
Right. Yeah, you did. You like cried, then turned on the Zoom, you know, like the WhatsApp video, and then you told them, and then you hung up, and then you cried.
Yeah.
I think, you know, I call him Baby Aiden, and I talk about him with my little one as Baby Aiden, because in my head, he's Baby Aiden, and when they count their cousins, I always make sure that they include Baby Aiden, and maybe it doesn't make sense, but that's okay. You know, he's part of our family, and so I think death is a little bit obscure and you can't explain it, but it is a fact. It's just a part of our family, and so we remember him and we talk about him, and I try to sponsor things that like connect with him. You know, like when our synagogue had like a music and lights show, I was like, this is perfect. Aiden liked music and lights, you know? And I try, you know, to find connections for all of us. And I know that Judith throws him his birthday party also for my kids. And I think that's very important for all of us.
Well, I want to ask one more question before we get there. I'll say that we both try. We all try. We try very hard. And Ilana tries, I think sometimes she pulls more than her weight in the trying. She tries really, really hard. And I appreciate it and I see it. And I think Aiden feels it.
So it's a little bit crazy because I don't know how much Judith has told on the podcast, but my best friend lost her niece to SIDS about 2 months after Aiden. No, 2 months after. In July. Yeah. The time frame is.
Yeah.
My best friend lost her niece to SIDS in July of 2021. So everything I had just gone through for 3 months, my best friend was going to start going through. I tried to prepare her, but I think you can't really prepare people for the ups and downs. And every relationship is different. You know, this is her relationship with her brother versus my relationship with my sister. They're different relationships. But I think the two things to say are, number one is keep those conversations lines open. You know what? If you can't talk on the phone, you can send a text message. You can write a letter. You can send a card. You can send a card without writing anything personal in the card. You just need to show that you're present and that you're trying, that you are remembering that there's a child that's not here anymore. Mm-hmm. So, that would be number one. And number two, which is what I told my friend, was that you have to make that child part of your own life, just like me and Judith have been describing. Because then you're not only just saying to your family member, like, not just saying, oh, I'm remembering Aiden now. You are actually remembering that child now. And so, action is like the first time you do it, you're like, okay, I'm planting this plant in memory of that person. Well, life happens, and 3 years later, that plant is still growing raspberries, or still flowers are blooming, and that plant is still Aiden's plant or this child's plant, and you think the first time you do it, you're like, okay, I'm doing it once, but you can make traditions. And even if they feel forced the first time and they feel forced the second time, the third time you do it, it feels more comfortable. And I think that's what we've done with Aiden's birthday party. The first year, Judith was like, this is how we're going to do Aiden's birthday party. Here's the list of things to do. But
parents were so newly divorced. Oh my God.
It was horrible, and it was awkward, and it was weird. But now we've done it 3 times, and it feels less weird, and it feels less awkward, and it feels like this is what we do for Aiden's birthdays. We, pick organizations, and we do an art project, and we donate money, and we eat cake, So you don't realize when you're making traditions that you are. But if you do things 1 year, a second year, a third year, they become instilled in not only your memory, but your emotional memory. Mm-hmm. And they serve as connection points.
Yeah. I want to ask, actually, just to tie in, this will be my last question, which is just to come full circle, where would we describe our relationship now? How would we put it to words as to where we are now?
Well, you're still picking up my clothes, so we're back to that. And we're texting each other multiple times a day. And I think we're still, scatterbrained, but thinking the same things at the same time. And, the right thing to say, and maybe we don't know it yet, but is that we're stronger. And I hope we don't have to test that strength. The only one more thing is that I would say that's different is that we've gotten much better at planning what things are going to look like so that we can take things in consideration for the other person. Where are we going to sleep, and where are we going to eat, and what are we going to do, so that it's not like when you came for our brother's wedding and none of that had been spoken about in advance. And that way, and
I know that my needs will be respected. If I say I need to stay at a hotel, she'll respect that.
Yeah,
100%. And hopefully you're comfortable to say it.
Yeah. I have one more question that I didn't think about, but okay, we spoke about this briefly, but our parents were getting divorced after 35 years, this exact same time, a couple months later. Do you think that in some ways that helped or hurt the situation? I think that it was such a shit show. Everything was completely reset. There were no rules. Everything was lost and confused. That in some ways, it just kind of slipped in the background.
I think it made the divorce significantly less challenging than it would have otherwise been. We had already been to hell, so there wasn't another hell.
Yeah.
We'd already been there.
And I think one would say, but your relationship was so strained, so did that make it harder because you guys weren't able to rely on each other? I wouldn't say that wasn't my experience.
I think we actually relied on each other And that was helpful for us.
Yeah, because
it was like a common...
It was another shit show to complain about.
Yeah. It's funny. I heard recently on a different podcast, this journalist, his name is like Bruce Feiler, and he talks about like how life and change happens like in between what they call life quakes. That in life, there are these things called life quakes. I thought that was like the perfect word.
Yeah. And
you get one like every 5 to 7 years, or in our case, like once every 9 months. And that's when people grow in these in these like in between the life quakes is like when growth happens. And I actually saved it on my phone because I thought it was like so apropos. So he wrote a book about it. Anyways, the long goodbye, the messy middle, and the new beginning. And like, I thought that this was exactly what we've gone through. Mm-hmm. We had a long goodbye to Aiden. And then we had this
long goodbye to each other too. There was a long
and to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had this messy middle where who knew what to talk about, who knew what was flying. Every day was different, lots of drama with all the family members. And I think we're at this new beginning where we're stronger and we listen to each other and we are more open and honest about what we're thinking.
I think there are times where there are moments that are still hard for me, but I think there are a few things. Like, first of all, I've gotten stronger. So even when it hurts, it's less shocking. It's just like, oh yeah, and this is what it feels like when I hurt. And it doesn't affect me as much. First, it hurts less, but when it does hurt, I'm able to manage it a lot better. And I think that we've also found like the good parts, the fun parts that make it helpful, like I would say that it's our relationship is not strained at all. I think our relationship is happy and it's friendly and it's loving, and she's my sister again. I think one thing that I've noticed change for me is like I no longer feel like her path is going to be my path. Like it's very clear to me that I have my own path now. And it feels like I've accepted that my path for right now is harder. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Life is long, who knows? But it doesn't feel as personal. I've just kind of like, I'm better at carrying the hardness of my life. And sometimes that weight, like I'm just more used to it and it's not personal. And I've just kind of accepted that like, that's her life and this is my life. And it doesn't, I think that beforehand it just felt like whatever happens to her is going to happen to me. And now I just see ourselves as like two very different branches on the same tree. Like I have my strengths, my story, my challenges. She has her strengths, her story, and her challenges. And we're choosing to be best friends. But I think it took me a while to get there.
Less presumptions. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a choice. It's a choice in a way that it's good. It's like now you get to choose to be best friends. You're not like thrown into it. You're like recommitted.
And I'm so grateful to you that you made that choice, because I was always going to make that choice, but I wasn't sure that you were going to.
I know so many people that are going to feel less alone and cry, but feel a little less alone, because I think that this is not uncommon. And I hope that our story can be like one that makes them feel hopeful, because I think we're in a good spot and we didn't know for a long time if we ever would be. So I hope that if you're listening to this and in some way it resonated for you, that you feel reassured that it's possible to make it out the other side. As Ilana says, stronger. Yeah. And I'm going to see you next week.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness.
To all of our wonderful new friends, we want to hear from you. Email us at aslongasimlivingpodcast@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram at aslongasimlivingpodcast. We'll get back to you as soon as our grieving brains allow.
Yay!